Hi, I'm Andrew, the young adult and media librarian at North Brunswick Public Library. Do you like games? When you read a book, do you always enjoy trying to figure out what's going to happen next? To try to look for clues and unravel them? Then I think that you would enjoy this new YA novel, The Inheritance Games, by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. Jennifer Lynn Barnes is a prolific YA author, but she's also an associate professor of psychology. And I think that she seems to that understanding of how the brain works is helpful because this is a book that has a lot of puzzles, but one of the most important puzzles is the main character and narrator Avery trying to figure people out. She's in a very unusual situation. So she finds out that she's heir to a fortune from a billionaire who she never met before, or she has no idea who he is. Why was she selected as his heir, as his primary heir? Well, not only would she like to know, but his family would like to know why. This family born into a life of luxury, or why would they possibly think that's this teenage girl who has never even heard of their grandfather, of the patriarch of the family, suddenly be the heiress. Anyways, there are a lot of twists and turns. So I'm going to read just the very beginning of this book because I don't want to give away any of the fun things that happen. When I was a kid, my mom constantly invented games. The quiet game, the who can make their cookie last longer game. A perennial favorite, the marshmallow game, involved eating marshmallows while wearing puffy Goodwill jackets indoors to avoid turning on the heat. The flashlight game was what we played when the electricity went out. We never walked anywhere, we raced. The floor was nearly always lava. The primary purpose of pillows was building forts. Our longest lasting game was called I Have a Secret, because my mom said that everyone should always have at least one. Some days she guessed mine, some days she didn't. We played every week right up until I was 15, and one of her secrets landed her in the hospital. The next thing I knew, she was gone. Your move, princess. A gravelly voice dragged me back to the present. I don't have all day. Not a princess, I retorted, sliding one of my knights into place. Your move, old man. Harry scowled at me. I didn't know how old he was really, and I have no idea how he'd come to be homeless and living in the park where we played chess each morning. I did know that I was a formidable opponent. You, he grumbled, eyeing the board, are a horrible person. 3 moves later, I had him. Checkmate. You know what that means, Harry? He gave me a dirty look. I have to let you buy me breakfast. Those were the terms of our long-standing bet. When I won, he couldn't turn down the free meal. To my credit, I only gloated a little. It's good to be queen. I made it to school on time, but barely. I had a habit of cutting things close. I walked the same tightrope with my grades. How little effort could I put in and still get an A? I wasn't lazy. I was practical. Picking up an extra shift was worth trading a 98 for a 92. I was in the middle of drafting an English paper in Spanish class when I was called to the office. Girls like me were supposed to be invisible. We didn't get summoned for sit-downs with the principal. We made exactly as much trouble as we could afford to make, which in my case was none. Avery. Principal Altman's greeting was not what one would call warm. Have a seat. I sat. He folded his hands on the desk between us. I assume you know why you're here. Unless this was about the weekly poker game I've been running in the parking lot to finance Harry's breakfast, and sometimes my own, I had no idea what I'd done to draw the administration's attention. Sorry, I said, trying to sound sufficiently meek, but I don't. Principal Altman let me sit with my response for a moment, then presented me with a stapled packet of paper. This is a physics test you took yesterday. Okay, I said. This wasn't the response he was looking for, but it was all I had. For once, I'd actually studied. I couldn't imagine I'd done badly enough to merit intervention. Mr. Yates graded the tests, Avery. Yours was the only perfect score. Great, I said, in a deliberate effort to keep myself from saying okay again. Not great, young lady. Mr. Yates intentionally creates exams that challenge the abilities of his students. In 20 years, he's never given a perfect score. Do you see the problem? I couldn't quite bite back my instinctive reply. A teacher who designs tests most of his students can't pass. Mr. Altman narrowed his eyes. You're a good student, Avery. Quite good, given your circumstances. But you don't exactly have a history of setting the curve. That was fair, so why did I feel like he'd gut punched me? I am not without sympathy for your situation, Principal Altman continued, but I need you to be straight with me here. He locked his eyes into mine. Were you aware that Mr. Yates keeps copies of all his exams on the cloud? He thought I cheated. He was sitting there staring me down, and I've never felt less seen. I'd like to help you, Avery. You've done extremely well given the hand life has dealt you. I would hate to see any plans you might have for the future derailed. Any plans I might have? I repeated. If I'd had a different last name, if I'd had a dad who was a dentist and a mom who stayed home, he wouldn't have acted like the future was something I might have thought about. I'm a junior, I gritted out. I'll graduate next year with at least 2 semesters worth of college credit. My test scores should put me in scholarship contention at UConn, which has one of the top actuarial science programs in the country. Mr. Altman frowned. Actuarial science? Statistical risk assessment. It was the closest I could come to double majoring in poker and math. Besides, it was one of the most employable majors on the planet. Are you a fan of calculated risks, Mr. Grams? Like cheating? I couldn't let myself get any angrier. Instead, I pictured myself playing chess. I marked out the moves in my mind. Girls like me didn't get to explode. I didn't cheat, I said calmly. I studied. So you can see that, right away there's, this is the very beginning, and we're already learning a lot about Avery, about how, she has a background that some people might think is pitiable, but that she doesn't pity herself. We know that she seems to be very practical, very always thinking, always, and it seems to be have a good heart as well. She's a very sympathetic character. And when she finds herself in this strange situation where she's called to some stranger's mansion in Texas, and finds that she needs to actually live at this fancy house with servants, and there's also the relatives there, and there's the grandsons of Mr. Hawthorne, the deceased, who seem dangerous, but now certainly not without their charms, right? There seems to be some attraction going on there with her and at least one of the grandsons. So if you're like Avery and are always looking for some kind of puzzle to solve, then I think you would enjoy this book. I will be discussing this book on Friday, the 21st of May, So if you would like to come to the book club meeting, the teen book club meeting, you can let me know. You can email me at agerber@northbrunswicklibrary.org. This book, there is a planned sequel to be coming out. There's also an adaptation planned for Amazon. So you can read the book first and get a good handle on that. Have you read this book? I'd love to hear your opinion on it. You can also look up other books that we have by Lynn Barnes. But I'd love to hear from you, and happy reading and happy puzzle solving.